Three, two, one, action!
China is the largest country on Earth with over 1.4 billion people, approximately 20% of the world's population. Immigration to Australia began in the 1800s during the Gold Rush era in Victoria. As of 1861, the Chinese community has grown to 70% of the total population of Victoria, despite immigration policies of the 1850s, limiting Chinese immigration. After the Gold Rush, the Chinese population turned entrepreneurship, opening grocery, medicine, and laundry businesses. With Chinese immigration, so came Chinese customs, traditions, and religions, such as Confucianism, Taoism, and Buddhism. And cuisine. Immigration was overwhelmingly hindered in 1901 with the Immigration Restriction Act, commonly referred to as the White Australia Policy. Prejudice against the Chinese community existed for quite some time, however, with activism from notable people such as Luo Amoy and Lo Kongmang, the overwhelming positive effects of Chinese immigration were understood. Thus, the immigration restrictions to Europeans were only removed in the 1970s, and the Chinese community flourished. As of the 2016 census, 2.2%, or over 500,000 Australians, were born in China, the fourth largest demographic of those born overseas. Mandarin, which is the formal language of China, is the second largest spoken language in Australia, with almost 600,000 or 2.5% of Australians fluent. Chinese culture is most visible at Chinese New Year, where the best is on display. Chinese New Year is a time of familial relations, honouring the earth, heaven, ancestors, and gods. Fireworks, traditional dances, and food is shared. Chinese food is an integral part of the multicultural society such as Australia, and will be the focus of this presentation.
In China, there are many different factors that influence cuisine. Firstly, food choice is influenced by many geographical elements, especially in China. Since China is the second largest country in the world, it owns around 9.5 million square kilometres, which is 3.7 million square miles. Due to the large size of China, different regions will have different climate environments. Climate and weather is one of the main issues that affect crop production. In southern regions, the climate is warmer and rainfall is more plentiful, which provides a perfect environment for growth of rice, whereas weather in northern region is cold and dry. This makes it more suitable for wheat growth. This may explain why rice became a main grain crop in the southern region, while wheat was the main staple food in the north. This explains why in northern China they usually have dumplings, spring rolls, and buns as their staple food. This is why rice and noodles became the major staple food in Chinese cuisine. This is the reason that different regions have their specific feature taste and eating pattern. For example, Chinese and Sichuan tend to have a hot and spicy foods due to the cold and moist weather, and by eating spicy and hot foods, it can make people feel warmer. Religion. Major religions amongst Chinese-born people are Buddhism and Catholicism. Like many other major world religions, Buddhist philosophy implies certain rules that any individual Buddhist may or may not practice. The rules of diet are grounded in the 5 precepts of core Buddhist guidelines for living. The ultimate goal of Buddhist practice, the elimination of suffering by limiting attachment to worldly things. Some of these rules include, and the first being, vegetarianism. Avoid harming any living organism. Be simple and natural. For example, choose bland foods such as rice, tofu, beans, etc. Avoid eating strong-smelling plants like shallots and mountain leek. These 5 together are called Wu Xin, as they tend to excite senses. Social elements. In Chinese society, it is common for people to treat others with meals in order to make new friends or enhance established relationships. In most occasions, having a meal together has the meaning of sharing and participating. Sharing food is naturally linked with intimate relationships, since it can help break down the invisible divide between people. However, food also has the function in isolation. Food can be used to express people's social status. Rare and expensive food is always used to represent wealth and high socioeconomic status. These foods usually are animal-based foods and are scarce. For example, bird's nest, shark's fin, and bear's paw, as well as lobster. High economic status families use these cuisines during special events or celebrations. For example, weddings. Celebrations. Chinese love to celebrate festivals. Food plays an important role in celebratory festivals. Each of these festivals have a different special food relating to the specific celebration, and all of them represent a different meaning, such as rice dumplings for Dragon Boat Festival, mooncake for Mid-Autumn Festival, and rice cake for Spring Festival. Chinese people believe that these kind of foods can bring luck, health, and riches. Most of the symbolism on these foods are based on their pronunciations or appearance. Eating these foods has become a traditional habit for Chinese people.
The Chinese have many different traditional foods that hold meaning and worth into the Chinese culture. Chinese people love hot food, and there are many different types according to their traditions. The most common breakfast food is soya bean milk, deep-fried dough sticks, dim sum, stuffed buns, or rice noodles. People from northern China may also have pickled vegetables and roasted peanuts with congee, which is a rice and water soup. All of these foods are available in Australia in big Asian markets, however they may taste different. Some Chinese may also consume toast with coffee for breakfast or yogurt and fruits. The main reason for this is it is convenient, and in China you can buy a Chinese common breakfast anywhere, but in Australia you may have to go into Chinatown to buy it. So they have started to try and have cold meals for breakfast. A Chinese traditional lunch is comprised of 1 portion of starch, such as rice or noodles, and 2 to 3 hot dishes. Dinner is considered to be the main meal of the day. The meal pattern is similar with lunch, but more plentiful, with 4 dishes and 1 soup. However, now Chinese people will buy sandwiches, wraps, pizzas, or salads for lunch, due to the effect of their migration to Australia. This then changes their meal pattern, and it has become more westernized. The Chinese do not think products of bread are to be considered a meal. The Chinese people consider a main meal to include rice or noodles, and can not be any other starch foods. Common vegetables eaten in China include Chinese cabbage, bok choy, gai lan, which is Chinese broccoli, and choy sum. Chinese people love to eat the cooked vegetables, but most of these common veggies cannot be found in Australia. The Chinese have started to consume raw salad or use other greens available in Australia, such as baby spinach, broccoli, and cauliflower to replace. Some of the older Chinese migrants will grow their own vegetables. Also, the dairy consumption has increased after migration. Milk, cheese, and yogurt all contain rich calcium, and these are in most Australian foods. Chinese New Year is the most important and traditional festival in China. An indispensable food is Niango, which is Chinese New Year cake, also known as rice cake, with the meaning of thriving and coming into the new year. Gao has the same pronunciation as the word high, and Nian means year, so blessed people could get a higher salary or a better job position in the new year. Also, dumplings are another representative food for Chinese New Year. It is shaped like the ancient gold or silver inklots, which symbolize wealth. It is a wish for making money and also receiving fortune. Fish is also one of the main dishes in the New Year dinner, because the pronunciation of fish is similar to the word yu, which means surplus, so they have leftover food, money, and goods. All of these dishes are important because of the luck they symbolizes, which brings wealth and health, and creates a good start into the coming new year. However, certain fish that are used in China may not be available in Australia, so sometimes other white fish such as cod or barramundi can be used. The most common Chinese eating pattern is to share big bowls of soup and vegetable or meat dishes. They will pre-cut all of the food into small pieces, so there is no need for cutting at the table. They eat the main meal together, and everyone starts the main meal at the same time on the table. Chopsticks and flat-bottom spoons are common eating utensils used on the table. After migration to Australia, the Chinese started to use knives and forks during the meal. Also, the Chinese order their own one meal not to share with others in order to follow the Australian eating pattern when they hang out with locals or eat out. The Australian Guide to Healthy Eating visually represents the proportion of food groups that is recommended to be consumed each day. This simple-looking guide is based on the best scientific evidence, with over 55,000 scientific journals and articles being retrieved by a team of nutritional and medical experts. The guideline states a recommendation of a diet that consists of 33% grains, 33% vegetables and legumes, 10% fruit, 10% milk and yogurt, 13% lean meats and nuts and seeds, and tofu. Allowing for foods with high sugar and high fat to be consumed only sometimes in small amounts. Following these guidelines will mean that you are considered to have a healthy diet, and this will improve your quality of life and well-being and protect you against chronic diseases. When comparing the Chinese New Year diet to the Australian Guide to Healthy Eating, it is apparent to see some major differences. The traditional Chinese New Year diet consists mainly of noodles, dumplings, spring rolls, fish, oranges, sweet rice cake and sweet rice balls. Comparing this to the visual guide translate to 43% grains, 29% sometimes in small amount foods, 14% fruit, 14% lean meats, and 0% vegetables, milk and yogurt. From this comparison, it is clear to see that the Chinese New Year diet is too high in grains and sometimes foods and does not contain enough vegetables or milk and yogurt products. This then also links to the Australian Dietary Guidelines, which are 5 major guidelines that are described as the best approach to eating for a long and healthy life. However, the 2 main ones that are important while comparing the Chinese and Australian diet is Guideline 2, consume a variety of nutritious food from the 5 main food groups, and Guideline 3, limit intake of saturated fats, added salt and added sugar in diet. As the Chinese New Year diet is nearly 50% grains, this is not an even balance of the food groups. While grains are the best source of energy when it comes to food, eating high volumes of them over a long period of time can have adverse effects on people's health. Where some whole grains are very nutritious, the Chinese foods of rice cakes and sweet rice balls and noodles all contain refined grains. Refined grains are where the nutrients have been removed from the grain and it is high carb, high calorie and high starch. Because there is little fibre left in them, this means they get broken down quickly, which then leads to rapid spikes and a drop in blood sugar levels. This then leads to becoming hungry and getting more cravings. Studies have shown that this is directly linked to overeating and consequently weight gain. As the Chinese diet consists highly of white refined rice, which is low in nutrients, they should consider lowering the amount of grains in their diet. This then giving evidence to Guideline 3, which suggests the consumptions of unhealthy foods to be limited to only sometimes.
In addition to this, the Chinese New Year diet contains 0% vegetables. The consumption of vegetables in your diet has been proven to directly relate and improve your nutrition intake.
When the sufficient amount of vegetables have not been consumed in your diet, this then leads to ongoing nutritional deficiencies, which can affect short and long-term health. This is supporting evidence to the second guideline, which states that a variety from all 5 food groups should be consumed. These are just a few of the differences between the Australian diet and the traditional Chinese New Year diet.